Redemption. Is redemption good enough for the Baltimore Ravens because they open up against the Bills, or should they just let it go and just start completely over with the new season? We'll talk about that today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL podcast, where you get a double dose twice a day of all the biggest stories from around the National Football League. And reminding you, we are free to subscribe to wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen, we will be there. We're here, and today I'm here as usual on Friday with my man Matt Williamson from the Peacock and Williamson podcast, former NFL scout, and of course, the founding members of Locked On NFL. We always have to give my brother his credit for that. Here's what we're going to talk about. Can Raiders surprise? And then will the Bengals be a surprise every week? That's segment 3. Segment 2, the sneaky good NFC team that both Matt and I believe might take the NFC crown back out west if we're not careful. And then a dangerous New York club that nobody's talking about. And I ain't talking about the Jets either. I'm talking about the other team. But we're going to start with redemption. The Baltimore Ravens opened the season against the Buffalo Bills. That's where their season ended, right? And a lot can be made of games early in the year. Before I get to Matt, I want to play this by Joe Marino. And I'm going to let Joe Marino tell you how the Bills' early season is going to go.
All right, it's official. Bills are hosting the Ravens week 1. You got to be there. Download the Game Time app. It's the best place to get tickets. I mean, we're talking Josh Allen, the reigning NFL MVP, hosting the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. The Bills bounced the Ravens in the postseason last year, ended their season. It's a high-stakes game, week 1. You have a chance to be in the stadium. You can't miss that. 2 of the most electric playmaking quarterbacks in the entire NFL in week 1. Nobody wants to start the season 0-1. Big one. Don't miss out. Check it out. Download the Game Time app. Use promo code SCHEDULE. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. And be there in person for the most exciting game on the NFL schedule in week 1 at Highmark Stadium. Josh Allen. Repeat MVP season. It starts Sunday Night Football against the Ravens. Don't miss out.
Boy, the NFL schedule got this one right, because I'm still thinking about that catch Isaiah Likely almost made last year against Kansas City, right? And everybody wanted that rematch to come back. Baltimore has a chance, though. Matt, do you do the revenge thing? Is this about redemption, or is it garbage in, garbage out? Nothing from last year is going to help us this year. This is a whole new season.
No, I mean, Sunday Night Football, I mean, I think you can't forget it. It seems like it just happened last week. You know what I mean? That's it. Things happen so fast in this league. And what I can't get enough of is clearly these were the 2 top candidates for MVP, Lamar and Allen. Easily. And I look at the Bills and think there's no one I would bet on that has a better chance of winning their division. And the Ravens are a big-time bettor's favorite right now to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, they're really strong right now in Vegas. But what I keep thinking about with these quarterbacks, and I don't think people look at this light, like people talk about Mahomes versus Brady. Is Mahomes the greatest ever? Is he potentially in that neighborhood? I don't think these two are that far off. Like if I'm doing my top 10 quarterbacks of all time list, is it time to start talking about Lamar and Allen? I mean, their body of work is really ridiculous. If we're going to talk about Marino and guys like that, are these guys every bit as good? I kind of think the answer is yes, and I don't ever hear anyone talk about that yet.
That's a great point. I would say not yet, but the only reason I do that, yards wise, accomplishment wise, because once you win MVP and then a multiple MVP, and you start doing the things that they've done, I think sometimes you can get caught in the moment and get lost, and you don't realize how great these dudes are because you're sitting there witnessing it, right? But I think in the old days, like Marino was doing that when teams were still running the ball a lot. And Marino was doing that back then too, when corners could like mug wide receivers. So a little bit of the times I kind of do that in the NBA too, Matt, just a little bit, just the time. I think it's easier to throw the ball now with 7-on-7 in the league adopting
For
to
sure.
the way college is. So, yeah, but if you're going to look at it in a vacuum, absolutely those dudes. I mean, Lamar Jackson is an MVP candidate every single year, and the dude ain't even 28 years old yet. So, yeah, man, you got to start thinking about it. I got a question for you before we even go to the Ravens here. What about Jalen Hurts? What does Jalen Hurts have to do?
Yeah.
He won an MVP, won a Super Bowl. Are we going to kind of like put Jalen Hurts in the game manager territory, or are we going to say, no, they absolutely won the Super Bowl because of him, and without him, they wouldn't have done it?
Yeah, I don't think he's in their territory as an all-time great candidate yet, but I do think it's time to start talking about his legacy as well, as especially if he can put another ring on his finger at some point, or I assume the Eagles will be big-time contenders. I just think that people don't think about quarterbacks in their prime enough in that aspect, and I love Marino. But Marino's my guy. I used to when I worked at Pitt, I used to tour guys past the house he grew up in. That Danny Marino's house where he grew up whenever he was a kid. Not the best neighborhood, but would you rather play against Troy Aikman or Lamar or Allen? I'd rather play against Troy Aikman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Troy Aikman's one of I rooted against him, but he beat me so much, I had to say that he was one of my personal favorites of all time too,
incredible.
because of just how great he was. All right, let's get to Baltimore and talk about Lamar Jackson and maybe what they have to do this year. They're going to have another tough schedule as if the one last year wasn't as tough. I'll tell you what Chris Carter told me just yesterday, though, about Baltimore seeming like they always play these tough games.
Also, Derrick Henry officially a member of the Ravens through the 2027-2028 season. It's a 2-year extension for Derrick Henry. This coming first from Adam Schefter. It is a 2-year extension, $30 million. So you're looking at $15 million per year on this extension, and $25 million of that is fully guaranteed. So it's a historic contract for running back over 30. It's the most money for running back over 30, according to Adam Schefter.
Good for him, good for Saquon, good for these running backs. Todd Gurley has an injury, and all of a sudden now nobody wants to pay great players anymore. Baltimore's going to need Derrick Henry. I'm glad they got him under contract. They got another tough schedule. They got a very, very big start. Here's what Chris Carter told me yesterday. He said, it's because the AFC North is so good, with the exception of the Cleveland Browns. And he said, they're in the best division, and they actually win it. So now they're in the best division with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, which are hard games. And then they have the first place schedule. Now they got to play all the division winners from the rest of the league.
100%. They have a tough road. The Henry contract, I'm glad you mentioned Saquon, because it's similar. They moved in the same offseason, way outkicked their coverage. They have all-time great, conversations coming around them too. I think Henry's the best back of this generation. Consider he's never going to catch Emmett or things like that. But man, this guy, I never own him in fantasy because I always doubt he's going to hit the wall. Nobody can outbeat Father Time except this guy. I'm just wrong about him every year. And I don't think the Ravens are the slightest bit concerned. All that guaranteed money, he really put them over the top. And maybe I'm in a nostalgic mood, Wig, but can you remember a backfield that is harder to play against in terms of ball carriers, or more unique at their position than Lamar and Henry? It's crazy.
I can't.
Yeah.
I absolutely can't. I go back. You can talk about whoever was on the team with who was it in Philly? Was it Brian Westbrook wasn't there? No, Westbrook was with McNabb. So I try to think of whoever was with Michael Vick. And then I try to think of who was with Randall Cunningham, and that was Keith Byers. So, no, that's not the answer. Maybe John Elway and Terrell Davis.
That's a good one.
Because Elway moved around, and then maybe Ricky Waters and Steve Young. And the element that I'm trying to add here is a guy having legs. Having legs. Yeah.
Just how hard they are to play against. And Vic had Dunn and Duckett, which at the time was like, wow. But compared to this, it's like, whoa, man, I'd rather play against those guys than Henry. Even like Vince Young had Chris Johnson. It was like, wow, that was pretty awesome. But what's going on in Baltimore is crazy.
No, it's crazy. You can't tackle it.
Yeah.
You can't tackle them one-on-one. And if it's 2-on-2 with both of them, that means you got some one-on-one matchups somewhere else. So if they ever get that receiver thing right, man, or if Mark Andrews just catches all the balls, maybe Lamar Jackson will have him a Super Bowl ring by now. All right, let's discuss more moving forward. The sneaky good team in the NFC and a dangerous sneaky club also in the NFC, but in the NFC East. We'll discuss that more here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, man. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their absolute minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live, and this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats. Even the biggest playoff games, prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. I don't know about y'all, but I'll tell you what, if you can get to New York, you better get there, because if the Knicks don't win, they might not make it back from Boston. Fly straight from Boston to Cancun. You'll find great seats as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price is guaranteed. Yeah, man, we're running it down here on Locked On NFL on a Friday. Matt Williamson joins us here. We're going to talk about sneaky good teams, two sneaky good teams, one sneaky good and one not expected to be very good, but they can. The Los Angeles Rams, we celebrate Philly because we remember the last thing that we saw Philly doing was running all through and around the Kansas City Chiefs. A week earlier, they almost didn't make it to the Super Bowl because the Rams were that good, and they have added Devontae Adams to go along with Puka Nacua. You can't name me three wide receiver tandems better, so don't even try. But you can talk about the Rams and what their schedule is and why their expectations are so high. Check out Locked On Rams with their schedule release information.
The Rams 2025 schedule is officially out, and you can get tickets to see all these games in person at Game Time. One thing I love about the Rams schedule is 3 of their first 5 games are at home. They open up with the Houston Texans on Sunday, September 7th. Then a few weeks later in week 4, they take on the Colts, followed by a matchup with the rival San Francisco 49ers. This is one of the more favorable starts the Rams have had in years. Yes, you got the Eagles on the road, the defending Super Bowl champions, before the matchup with the Colts, but a favorable start to the season. I would have liked to see more primetime games for the Rams, but the good news is 3 of those 4 are at SoFi Stadium, and you can see them in person. 49ers in Week 5 on Prime Video, Buccaneers Week 12 on Sunday Night Football, and then Week 17, Monday Night Football versus the Falcons. And you can get tickets to all of these and see them in person with the Game Time app. Get your tickets, download the Game Time app, and use our promo code SCHEDULE for your first purchase.
Dangerous ball club, man. The division got a little bit better, but still, I think the Rams are a problem for any and everybody that's going out there to face them this year.
1,000%. I mean, I think it's widely. Boy, I keep talking about like all-time greats, but I mean, everyone talks about Andy Reid is the best coach in the league, and I think that's fair. Sure, I mean, he's got the rings, he's got Mahomes, blah blah blah. I think McVay is every bit as good. I really do. I mean, they've reinvented that team. They went 9 or 10 years without a first-round pick. They do things differently than everybody else, and this Adams addition to me is maybe better than Cooks, Ramsey, Von Miller, all the guys that they've added over the years. This one might be my favorite because he's so different than Nacua. They run the ball really physically now. They invested in the O-line, and now the one more receiver puts them over the top. They've been in the search for this tight end. I don't know if Ferguson will do much, but you can just tell they're looking for all the exact pieces to make a run. Wouldn't shock me if Ramsey even ends up back with the Rams at some point. The front, the defensive line is ridiculous. I think they're one of the top 5 teams in the league without question.
No doubt about they're one of the top 5 teams in the league, man. And they're dangerous. They're dangerous, and they got a real young. They kind of look like Philly to the point where Now they're a two receiver team
Mhm.
with a quarterback. You got to give him a little bit of support, even though he's a real good passer of the football. They don't have Philly's offensive line, but it's not bad, right?
Not bad, right? Yeah.
But where they kind of remind me of Philly is defensively, because they got a lot of young guys that they have stacked year after year after year. They can really, really rush the passer. They don't have that as a crutch. And like I said, they know they were one throw and catch away from. I told my wife it was 1st and goal inside the red zone. I said they're gonna send Philly home. I said we're about to get a Rams. We're about to get a Rams Super Bowl against somebody in the Super Bowl, because they were just that close. Another team that we can mention that has really, really good young players on defense, and they got even better on defense, are the New York Giants.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring them up because they got a lot of pieces, man, on defense, and they are absolutely dangerous. When you talk about Dexter Lawrence, and now they got 3 pass rushers. An offensive line, it took them a while, but they finally figured it out, even though they did use a high pick on Evan Neal, and he ain't really turned out, but they still got Mr. Thomas and got some other pieces. But now they got Malik Neighbors. And now I think they're at least competent at quarterback. They like what they've seen in Jackson Dart, and they also got 2 big-time veterans. Listen to Patricia Traynor talk about the schedule release for the Giants.
The New York Giants 2025 schedule is out, and Game Time has you covered this season with tickets for all of the hard-hitting action. And in looking at the Giants' schedule, it's a brutal one, folks. New York will open the campaign with back-to-back road games against the NFC East foes, Washington and Dallas. And then a little later on in the first half of the season, they'll have 2 games within 3 weeks against the Philadelphia Eagles in weeks 6 and 8. The week 6 contest set for Thursday Night Football. If the Giants want to show that they're an improved team, they have to start winning in the division, something that they just haven't done in recent years. Last year going 0-6 against their divisional foes. We're going to learn a lot about just how far the Giants have come this offseason. And thanks to Game Time, you won't have to worry about being shut out of the action. Download Game Time today.
Yes, sir. Patricia Traynor talking about those Giants. I'm glad I'm not the minority, man, thinking that the Giants might be a little bit of a problem for some people.
Yeah, I've kind of thought this for a while, because I do think the defense, led by an exceptional defensive line now, and Dexter Lawrence, and now we have Abdul Carter and Thibodeau, et cetera, Burns, is better than people think. I mean, everyone just looks at them like, oh, they're one of the worst teams in the league. And she had some great points, as usual, that they have an awful schedule. I mean, maybe the worst schedule in the league.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
And 0-6 against the division just isn't going to cut it. I mean, you got to get to 500 or so to start being relevant in a difficult division. But 2 years ago, we looked at the Texans, who had the 2nd pick in the draft, and thought, man, they're terrible. Looked at Washington just a year ago, had the 2nd pick in the draft. Oh, they're terrible. They're not going to do anything this year. Somebody inevitably that picks high has a good year. And it might be the Giants. Their O-line's not terrible. Neighbors is a star. Between those 3 quarterbacks, that's got to be an upgrade. I mean, it's better than what it was.
Yeah, and I watched the games last year. And see, this is the thing about it. When you watch the games, you see a competitive team. You saw a team that, man, like if they could just get that quarterback fixed, they'd be a little bit better. Like the Jaguars, for instance, 4-13, right? The team that I cover. But the only thing about that 4-13, I'll tell you, is this: they lost 8 games by 1 score. So it ain't like they were just getting run up and down the field. It just got to be the point. It's got to the point where it was just super, super redundant, because they kept losing 1-score games. And when that happens, you get to the point where you're like, okay, man, something's really wrong with this. They don't know how to finish. They're not translating from practice to the games. But still, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging somebody when they're super, super competitive. Speaking of competitive, the Raiders, who we're going to get to in segment number 3. The Raiders have done something really, really sneaky. And it's really old school. It reminds me of Pete Carroll as their coach. And I'll tell you exactly what that is in just a second here in the 3rd and final segment of Locked On NFL. All right, 3rd segment here on Locked On NFL. Talking about, we've mentioned Baltimore going for redemption against the Bills, trying to put the past behind them and win in the future. The sneaky good NFC team and a dangerous team coming out of New York that even if they don't win a lot of games, they're going to be a big headache for a lot of teams. Before we get to the Raiders, I'm going to bring this up. Last year, the Patriots were a thorn in the side to a certain team early in the year. And this team always struggles early in the season because they just don't play their players in the preseason and because they take their rookies who need to be practicing and they don't pay them and agree to his contract. So now you got a rookie in Shamar Stewart that actually needs every rep he can get, and he's not up there practicing. This is the Bengals being the Bengals all over again. They got to play this tough schedule. Check the guys from Locked On Bengals out.
They need to get out of that stretch, that first 6-game stretch where they play 3 of their 4 NFC North games. So they have 1 AFC North game in that time. Obviously, AFC North record and winning in the AFC North is a huge part of this team's success. And for that, it's a later in the year issue. But if you can get through those first 6 games or first month and have a winning record, be 4-2 at worst after 6 games, you've set yourself up for success the rest of the season. You cannot deal with another slow start.
I believe it was me and you. It could have been me and you or me and one of the other guests. It might have been all 5 of us, all 5 of y'all and me, sitting there saying last year when the Bengals lost that game to one of the worst teams in the league at the beginning of the year, we said, that's going to catch them. That is going to catch up with them. So they win in week 18. And Kansas City loses to Denver, and it keeps Cincinnati out of the playoffs. Good. You got to get off to a better start. What's going to cause the Bengals to do a little bit better at the beginning of the year, Matt?
I don't know, because I criticize them every year because they do the exact same thing. I mean, Taylor, their head coach, doesn't seem to learn from history and never plays his guys in the preseason. They're notorious slow starters. To his credit, though, Burrow's had some weird off seasons. You know, he's had some injuries. He hasn't really ever had a full camp. But still, they do the same things year after year. And I just tweeted this yesterday. I mean, they lost 4 games last year when they scored 33 or more points. 4. Yeah, that's the most in NFL history. And I don't know that the defense is in any better shape. I hate what's going on with Hendrickson at the moment. I mean, he's holding press conferences on the sidelines, and the defense doesn't look any better to me. And if he's not in the equation for whatever reason, I think they're going to be a disaster on that side of the ball. And I really start to worry big picture. How long's Burrow going to be tolerating this? You know, where this organization, yeah, they signed his receivers for him, but I don't like how they're run. They're very set in their ways. They're widely known as the team that's hardest to trade with. They never make moves on draft day. They're very set in their ways, and I think it holds them back quite a bit, and it starts with ownership.
The Bengals have a characteristic that I recognize very well. Mm-hmm. It's one that I had, and I say had in past tense. I was the very, very smart kid in school that never studied and never did homework.
Okay.
I got a 2.8 GPA.
Got by.
I could have been a valedictorian had I done valedictorian stuff. And the Bengals are the team that looks like they don't do their homework and they don't study, but they know they're good enough to pass the test, so they just come out there and score those 30 points, blame everything on Lou Anarumo, and maybe the fact that they weren't playing complementary defense to that offense is not all his fault. Because sometimes it ain't about scoring 35, 38 points and barely winning. Sometimes it's about scoring 27 points and keeping that ball for 33 and 34 minutes. But you need a good offensive line to do it, and you need to have a lot of confidence, and they don't seem to have it all the time. So what do? They just put everything on Burrow and Chase and Higgins, and let's go. And then they give Gesicki money. He's stealing more money than Sam Bradford, so I don't even understand what that's all about. But they're just not run properly. It makes me think that if they had a coach like Pete Carroll, and that's where we're going. Las Vegas. What would happen if they had a really, really good coach like that? Like somebody that crosses all of the T's, dots the I's, understands the process, like maybe the Raiders are going to start doing under him. They did something uncharacteristic, man. They drafted the most productive college football player. There wasn't anybody who was going to argue with you last year. If you say positional value be damned, who's the best college football player in 2023 and 24? People would say it was Brock Bowers. And now this year at another position that does not ring out as a position of value, they got Ashton Genty, 2 very, very productive players. at what positions that some people consider non-critical. But I think it's something to be said by getting guys with a large body of work with all of that production. And now you got them on the same team and they're complementary.
Yeah, I really give them credit. And again, starts with ownership recognizing this isn't working. Let's get Brady involved. Let's get a new GM, a new head coach, highest paid offensive coordinator in NFL history, trade for a legit quarterback. Every rung down the ladder just got so much better. And the offense with Bowers and Gentry and a respectable O-line and a defensive line that can get after the passer, Wilkins comes back, is a really good place to start. Yeah, I mean, we talked about earlier who might be, the Giants, one of those teams that was picking early that could make noise this year. I wouldn't discount the Raiders. It's the first time that I'm kind of understanding their vision and where they're at.
Yeah, sometimes those little solid moves, man, those are the ones that work out. I do wish they would have kept Nate Hobbs, who is now in Green Bay. I think Nate Hobbs is the real deal. I wanted the Jaguars to get Nate Hobbs. I tell you what, though, you want to find out as these teams head to minicamp, the vets report in Jacksonville this weekend. You want to find out about those rosters. Check out Locked On NFL Scouting with hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. Ain't nobody better at making you smarter about all of the rosters across the National Football League, the team that you like and cover, and the rest of the teams. Find out everything you want about those rosters to help you with your fantasy. Check out Locked On NFL Scouting wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. That's it for us this week, man. But we'll be back on Monday here on Locked On NFL for Matt Williamson, who's going to go and tackle the world up there in Pittsburgh. And I'll do the same thing down here, Matt, here in Jacksonville. You guys have a great weekend. Happy minicamp to all of you guys. And we'll be back here on Monday on Locked On NFL. Tyler Rowland will be back on Monday morning with the Madman Show early in the morning. We thank you for spending 27 minutes with us today. Matt and I will see you later. Take care.